am not a god. I don't think we're all gods, and that is ridiculous. New Age. What do you think about it? Right? Things like crystals, yoga, meditation, prosperity, all these different things that obviously are New Age. They seem to be, harmless for the most part. Are they really? From experience, I would say no. I was heavy into crystals and that New Age thing, and I can tell you from experience that it definitely it's not as innocent as it looks, per se. But with that being said, I found this clip. I want to share it with you guys. I believe this is a modern witch, or she used to be a modern witch, and she practiced astrology, tarot cards, and crystals and all that stuff along with yoga. So let's go ahead and dive right into it.
People write into me all the time, and I even have just friends ask me in my regular lives, Michael, what do you know about the law of attraction? Michael, what do you know about The Secret? What do you know about the crystals and Reiki and astrology and all this stuff that I say seems really, really kooky and weird, but I don't know anything about it? You do, and you say it's not all just fun and games. It gets pretty, pretty dark.
Mm-hmm. So I was involved with occult practices for almost a full decade. I had an extremely tragic death in my family in 2014. We touched on this briefly when we spoke. My grandmother died. I was on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean when it happened, and she was like my best friend in the world. I grew up with a single mom, did the best she could, love her to death, but she could only do so much. So grandma really kind of stepped in and took over with after-school care, things like that. So we were very, very close growing up. She was my everything. Kind of in hindsight, she was my God. And when she died, it was absolute tragedy for me. It was the worst thing that's ever happened. And once that occurred, I was desperate for any way to connect with her, to talk to her again, to experience her again. And I didn't know any better. All I knew was my pain. And I know now that Satan kind of capitalizes on trauma. Everyone I talk to that's coming out of New Age doesn't have the same story as me, but often there is a pinpoint traumatic moment where they've started to go down this rabbit hole.
Satan, for the most part, he definitely waits perfect opportunity. Either one, you don't have much going on in your life and you're really bored for the most part, or something like this happens where you're seeking external help or answers, and he decides to slip in right there and try to provide you with, his way of coping with it. And yeah, he'll give you the certain answers. They're not holy per se. So I find that to be a common thing.
And so I went to see a medium. I consulted a psychic medium after she passed, and the medium knew things that she just really had no business knowing.
That's not the medium. That is demons. Demons know these things.
It was astounding at the time, and I was hooked. I was just 100% all in from that point forward, and it just was a domino effect from there. So the medium had cards, angel cards, oracle cards as she called them, and I bought that same deck. I went on and bought that same deck by Doreen Virtue, who about 5 to 7 years ago actually came out and said, I'm not selling these cards anymore. God told me that these are demonic. I can't do this. I want to pull back all of my inventory. She had books out. She was like traveling the world. She lived in Hawaii, making so much money from doing this stuff, and just denounced all of it when Christ came to her. And so when I had heard that years ago, this is when I was really deep into all of it, I thought, well, she lost her mind, but it's kind of a full circle moment. I went out, bought those cards.
Now you realize you had lost your
mind. Right, I had lost my mind. I was the kooky one. And so after I got into cards, I wanted to learn how to develop my own psychic medium skills, so I would buy books about that. And this is all kind of alongside of self-help, getting into like the self-help kind of culture that just teaches you off the bat, you know, you are your own best asset. You. It's all like essentially narcissistic therapy.
This kind of reminds me of what's his name? Billy Carson. Everybody remember that guy? Yeah. That was a fun time.
In all of these books. So I'm doing that alongside learning about psychic mediumship and learning about tarot cards and things like that. That spiraled into yoga practice and Reiki because I had also, after my grandma passed, decided I was going to take control of my health because I was very overweight at the time. I was only 21 years old and I weighed over 260 pounds. I was not well, and I realized I was kind of setting myself up on the same path as my grandmother because ultimately it was her health that did her in. So I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm learning about self-help. I'm losing weight, getting healthy, developing this nice relationship with food and exercise, and also getting into spirituality. So this is like all these moving parts.
I will say though that for the most part, I find it to be confidential. That most of these new age practices come from usually a person that's into the big self-help, motivation, that kind of genre. I'm speaking about it because I know I was in there. So it hits home when she mentions something like this.
But the yoga was originally physical wellness, like a way to kind of supplement my weight loss process. But that very quickly became spiritual the more I read about it. And then I became a yoga teacher years later. And that, as I learned about the history of yoga, that just brought me right into Hinduism and all those concepts.
Well, of course, because people think yoga is just stretching or something,
Right,
you know, but really it's a religious liturgy, not just the kind of liturgy of liberal white girls in the suburbs, which is what it has effectively become
Indeed.
in America, but it goes back much further, and it's a Hindu spiritual practice.
And the word yoga literally means yoke. And so in that context, it's to yoke spirit. So it's an invitation for the Hindu gods to kind of come into your body. And a lot of the poses are specifically reenactments or paying homage to scenes with ancient gods and things like that.
And I have to pause you. For people who are going to say, well, that's crazy, that's insane, you think you're inviting all these spirits in, it's just yoga. I guess I would have to ask those people, hey, don't you think it's a little weird that in your physical stretches, as you are presenting these things to be, that you regularly chant and invoke ancient kind of Vedic or Hindu utterances? Isn't that a little weird that you go into poses that are explicitly and intentionally spiritual? Which of us is the crazy one here? Because I'm just reading into this long-standing tradition, what it has already always presented itself as doing.
Right, and that's kind of a misconception a lot of people have. Even Christians that I talk to now say, well, what's so bad about yoga? I challenge you, go into a yoga studio and try and say God's name. You can't. It doesn't fit. You can feel it. When I was a yoga teacher, toward the end, I tried doing it, and you can just feel from the class. It's like...
You're not saying you physically can't utter the word God.
Right.
You're just saying no one in that class.
People don't want it.
Right.
I was even told, because I used to put yoga videos on YouTube as well, and I would try and say, let's let God's presence come into the room, kind of just when I was trying to straddle the fence of both at the time. This was about a year ago. So I would get comments, people saying, I don't like that word, could you say universe? So it's the whole...
I don't like that word. Can you say Moloch, please?
Right.
Can you say Baal? Right.
So the yogi concept of God is very much source, universe, we are all God mindset. And
we are all gods. Man, I keep hearing that from specific religions and practices like these. And I gotta say, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I'm a god? Really? No. If I was a god, right? If I was a god, then why the heck do I make so many mistakes? I don't think God makes mistakes. Otherwise, he wouldn't be God. So, no, I am not a God. I don't think we're all gods, and that is ridiculous.
Alongside with what you were saying with the chanting and things like that, it's not just the chanting, it's the poses themselves. They're very unnatural. It's very different than just stretching.
Yeah.
So,
If you want to stretch, you can do Pilates, right? There's
yeah.
no, there's no
Right.
ohms and ahs in Pilates.
and so I always say that yoga is not a physical practice with spiritual benefits, it's a spiritual practice with physical benefits. So it's just,
So you got into yoga, you're a yoga teacher. You mentioned Reiki.
right.
I've heard this word before, again, from my kind of white girl liberal friends, and to confess my ignorance, I have no idea what it is.
It's energy healing. So the idea is, and when I say these things now, I feel like I just sound absolutely insane for having believed it so much.
I feel you.
So it's essentially you were allegedly able to tap into the universal energy, universal consciousness, and how that energy is supposed to be all love and healing. And so you are kind of the vessel for that energy to enter in, and you lay your hands over somebody on usually like a massage table, and you facilitate that energy through their body, and you move through their chakra system, which again, that kind of ties into yoga. So the idea is that we have these 7 energy channels in the body, in the throat, in the heart, and they all operate different things for us, like where our insecurities are and our self-expression, our creativity, sexual energy, things like that.
Now, for you guys don't know exactly what the chakras are, like I said, I used to be in this thing, or not in this thing, but I used to be pretty much for these type of practices. I'm going to show you a book that I purchased a long time ago, and now it's all pretty stupid, but just so you guys can see something. All right, this is called The User Guide to Balance, Mind, Body, and Spirit. Here it is. These are the chakras right here. So, yeah, just thought I'd share that with you guys.
And so, for instance, someone might say, I'm having kind of really bad cramps. Can you kind of clear that energy for me? And so you could deduct from that based on where the pain is and the chakra associated that, oh, you are probably having some sort of creativity block. Yeah, I'll clear that out for you. And so that's the idea. And you could use crystals to help facilitate that, because all the crystals, of course, have their designated healing qualities, supposedly.
I got to ask,
Sure.
does it work? Or even, does it do anything?
It does. It definitely puts you in an altered state of consciousness, and that's not just for the person receiving, it's also the facilitator as well sometimes. I would have really intense, because I would facilitate it and also receive. When I would facilitate, I would get moments where my hands would get very hot if I was over someone's throat or something, and that was my cue that that needed extra attention.
Do you think there's a physical, natural explanation for that, or no?
My understanding is that it's supposed to just be the energy accessible to all of us. So we all, in a way, experience, if you're having a creativity block, in a way I am too. So that's why I'm able to recognize it, because we're all one kind of mindset. And to answer your question in regard to does it work, it is a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. It works until it doesn't, and you need more, and you need more, and you need more. It
Never ending
really,
cycle.
for me, would alleviate, it's like taking Tylenol. It would just alleviate the symptoms, but
Or
not
any drug,
necessarily
right?
fix
It's like
the
taking
problem.
heroin, right?
Right, and I always say these things are spiritual narcotics, because that's exactly what they are. You get addicted to it. You get addicted to the highs. You know, you leave a Reiki session. Wow, I feel great. I feel so refreshed. I'm cleansed. And then 2 weeks later, you have a mental breakdown, and you're like, well, I guess this chakra's still kind of clogged, or I didn't cut these cords from my past life, sort of thing. There was always an excuse to justify why you needed more.
You believed in past lives?
Oh, yeah. I believed a lot of crazy things. I was, from the yoga and the Reiki, I was at this point where, again, I'm studying self-help, I'm getting healthy, I'm finally at a place where I don't hate myself when I look in the mirror because I had lost over 100 pounds. And this was about 6 years ago. So I'm still sad, you know. I thought I had worked through the grievances of my grandmother the best that I could by getting healthy. I thought, I'm eating well, I'm working out. Why am I still so depressed? I'm reading all these self-help books, like so many self-help books. You should have seen my shelves, it was ridiculous.
It's a never-ending loop when it comes to self-help, because at the end of the day, they're always going to say, listen, if it didn't work out, it's because you didn't put in the work. It's all on you. When in fact, it's all BS. It's, yeah.
Why am I not getting better? I'm journaling every day. I'm doing yoga every
After a while, it gets really repetitive. You can only buy so many self-help books, but they all seem to lead to one place.
day. I'm getting Reiki done.
I find the people who get into New Age and Reiki and who are really into yoga, they always seem to read a ton of self-help books.
Yeah, there's a correlation.
What's that about?
Listen, I did not watch this before I created this, just letting you guys know. But I already knew what this was going, because I've been through it. I lived it for years.
A savior complex, a self-savior complex.
As opposed to a savior.
Right. Everything is counterfeit gospel. Everything, all these practices in one way or another is a counterfeit gospel. And that is where I'm going to get into probably the weirdest part of my story, where I'm up maybe 2 or 3 a.m. one night Googling, why do I feel like this? Why do I feel like I don't belong? Why do I feel like I'm almost like an alien on this planet? And so I find information, journals from people saying, well, actually, it turns out you are an alien. So yeah, I literally believed I was an alien. They're called star seeds. And the idea is that star seeds come from another dimension, another star system, another planet, another galaxy. Like, I was mentally ill, if you couldn't tell. So.
But were you mentally ill in, I don't know, some part of your brain was firing the wrong way? Or were you just deluded?
I was deluded.
You deluded. I mean, it was not as though, you pop a pill and it fixes a chemical imbalance or something. You had just gone so far down this rabbit trail that it compounded on itself.
Spiraled, right? Yeah, absolutely. So I'm reading all this stuff, and it made sense to me because it said, you've always felt like an outsider because you are an outsider, you don't belong, and you came here to help Earth. So the starseed gospel, as I call it, is that you are kind of a light worker that has observed the state of our planet. And because, coming back to this idea that we're all one energy, the universe is all one, it's like, well, if this planet is out of whack, then that's going to ripple throughout the universe and create chaos throughout the universe. So we need to find harmony amongst ourselves. And so the light workers from different galaxies come in to Earth to ascend the collective. That's the narrative. And we do that with our healing modalities, Reiki and astrology. We teach these things to
So this, it's
help.
obviously.
But that's where the issue is, that you're always going to be, quote unquote, healing, because you're always going to be missing something. There's always going to be a chakra that's off balance. There's always going to be another self-help book that you need to pick up. There's always something, but you're never going to be fulfilled. That is the one drawback, and the major drawback that keeps basically keeps people coming back and falling for this. It is a temporary fix to some, and they say it works when they first started, which is why they continue to do it. But they eventually wake up. Well, hopefully.
Very esoteric.
Indeed.
But I guess I'm only half having trouble, because I've gone kind of down weird rabbit holes too, which we can get to a little later. I've never thought I was an alien, but I've gone down pretty weird rabbit holes.
That's the first
But
step.
in that moment, so you're looking this up, and this website says, oh, actually, Angela, you're an alien.
Yes.
What? How did you persuade yourself of that? Like, how would that have worked?
It justified my sadness, and it gave me a purpose, because I felt like I was meaningless. I didn't know why I was here. I wanted to die, to be quite frank. I was very suicidal, flirted with suicide in high school, on and off, in college, self-harm. I did all the things, and it never got better. You know, I was like 25 feeling the same way that I did when I was 15, despite all the work I was doing and despite how hard I was trying every single day to just pull myself up by the bootstraps and feel good. And just wasn't ever really hitting in what I was really looking for, which I know now was God. But yeah, when I was first learning about the starseed thing, it was like, wow, okay, this makes sense. So I chose this life. I chose to be here. I chose this suffering because it's teaching me something. It's my karma that I'm working through, because when I work out that bad stuff, it helps the universe with its bad stuff. It kind of doesn't make sense because it's not real. So,
Right.
and it's all kind of self-refuting, because it's like, well, we're the mess, but we're also the cleanup crew. Like, it just doesn't really match up. Like, you're the knot, but you also have to untangle the knot.
So, what do you guys think? Listen, I understand some people see something like this, and the first thing they ask is, how can you be so stupid to fall for something like that? And you're right. I would have said that myself, but I did fall for something like that. I never thought I was an alien. That's ridiculous. But who knows? I did think, though, that the New Age stuff actually was going to help me when it came to the crystals, when it came to the meditations, when it came to basically projecting to the universe instead of praying. When it came to what else? Basically everything and anything except for the actual Bible and Jesus Christ. So let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think this is all fluff? Do you guys think it actually works? Do you guys think this is demonic? And do you guys think this is a new trend that people are gonna just basically, not a new trend because it's already been going on, but do you think more and more people are seeking for these type of practices as opposed to the Bible itself? Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Always interesting down in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.